Today I'm building a custom background for this skyscraper terrarium from Zoomed.
This terrarium is huge, probably bigger than necessary for a crested gecko.
But there'll be a lot inside because it's going to be bioactive. The first thing I did was add some silicone for texture. Then I made some random patterns with this pet-safe spray foam. I wanted to add a large ledge for the gecko to sit on. So before the foam dried, I added this mushroom ledge from Zoomed, and then I sealed it in with some more spray foam. To give the enclosure a natural look and to give the gecko some added climbing surfaces, I added pieces of cork bark.
And I sealed them in the same way I did with the mushroom ledge.
To give the background even more dimension, I spray foamed in this piece of spider wood that I also got from Zoomed. And then I covered the entire background with a layer of sphagnum moss and coconut fiber. It's important that all of your materials and your substrate is bone dry before sealing them into the spray foam. If they're wet or damp, it's not going to stick very well.
After adding all of the substrate, I patted everything down and I'll leave it to dry overnight and we'll check to see how it turned out tomorrow.
Today I'm turning this skyscraper terrarium from Zoomed into a bioactive enclosure for my crested gecko.
In the last video we built this custom background which turned out amazing.
And now we're going to add a base layer of lava rock and these hydro balls from Zoomed. This is going to act as a drainage layer for the enclosure.
We're also going to add a small waterfall to this enclosure as well.
The pump for the waterfall is going to be inside that base layer. And we'll put a screen over top of the entire layer. Then we're going to line the edges of the terrarium with this terrarium moss. In addition to the screen, this will help stop any substrate from getting into the rocks and clogging up the waterfall pump. We then built up the bottom of the enclosure with this eco earth and used different pieces of cork bark to build our waterfall.
We planted some live moss, and to add a little dimension to the enclosure, we included this piece of mangrove root.
To ensure it was stable, we buried it and then reinforced it with some lava rock. To make it an even more natural environment, we added some live plants, which will quickly grow to the top of the enclosure.
The next step is to add in our cleaning crew of bugs and introduce Yoshi to her new enclosure.
We're building a bioactive enclosure out of this skyscraper terrarium from Zoomed.
And today we're adding in the cleaning crew.
When a bioactive enclosure is done correctly, there's really not a lot of cleaning for the humans to do, because these little isopods will do the majority of the cleaning. They feed on any decaying plant matter and the gecko's droppings. They'll live under the substrate and establish their own breeding colonies. So once they're established, you really don't even need to buy more isopods.
I'm adding a few fake plants to act as hiding spots until the live plants get bigger.
We're using this Reptisun LED UVB lamp to the enclosure. This should provide Yoshi and the plants all of the UVB light that they need. In addition to feeding a variety of bugs, we're also going to provide Yoshi with this gecko food. We like to feed her a varied diet to ensure that she gets all the nutrition that she needs and to give her some additional enrichment. When we introduced her to the enclosure, she explored it in its entirety. She even made it to the very top and checked out her new lighting. To finish the enclosure, we added some colorful decorations for the aesthetics.
Yoshi has been doing really well inside of this enclosure, but of course we're always ready to make changes if necessary.